everyone. Welcome to Chasing Thoughts with Chase. I am just going to put a disclaimer at the beginning of this video. You are not going to understand this if you are not watched a movie. If you haven't watched a movie, click off this video because I'm not going to be summarizing anything or basically like talking about summarizing it because I tried doing that in the last take and I just got hopelessly lost. Dude, it's so annoying. I'm not very good at summarizing movie plots, and I know that there are two ways I could do it. One, I could base it off of an actual like a Wikipedia article summary of the movie or something like that, someone else who did the work, which again I would be willing to give credit to and put it in my own words. Or two, I could, AI generate a response like, oh, this is it, and then again try to put in my own words, which again, I'm not willing to do that second option. I have a generally great dislike towards generative AI specifically. And that might be a topic for a future video. In fact, that will definitely be a topic for a future video. But it will be one where I am calm and not upset and not impassioned by the thing. If you saw the title on the video, this is a review of the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Though calling it a review would be a bit of a stretch, because I'm not really gonna be summarizing the movie or saying this is what's good about the movie, this is what's bad. Well, it will be a bit of that, but mostly it's about me talking about my experience with the Super Mario Galaxy movie and my purely biased opinion on it. So again, if you do know the movie and you came here for like an objective, deep analysis of it, I once again would suggest clicking off the video because unfortunately it's not that. I just want to be honest with the kind of video this is, even if it drops retention or whatever. This is just me mostly yapping about the Super Mario Galaxy movie in general, more so than the movie specifically itself. And I do want to talk about my experience with it. And also my experience with watching movies for the first time, because I watch movies for the first time in a particularly interesting way, especially as someone who, is going to talk about movies in the future. There are probably going to be more video podcast episodes on movies, and I kind of want to establish a sort of format for these kind of videos. This specific video will be split into two parts. The first one is my experience watching the movie for the first time. I'm going to kind of spend as much time as I can there because I can do this a lot better than the second part. And the second part is my impression of the movie now compared to then. I think this is the best way to do it. I tried summarizing the movie in the first part, and that didn't work so well. So again, I am going with this. I'm recording this off the assumption that anyone that watches this is going to have at least watched the movie once. Otherwise, most of what I say will not make sense. And there will not be footage to accompany this because two reasons. A, I don't want to get copyright struck by Nintendo because they tend to be pretty harsh about this kind of stuff. Even if it is defined under fair use. I'm well aware what fair use is. I'm not willing to take the risk of getting copyright struck anyway. And two, the real reason is that I'm lazy and I'm supposed to release this episode tomorrow. And I'm not joking, I think it's after 5. Yeah, it's nearly 5:30 and I still have to edit this episode, so yeah. Don't worry, I will try and make the next podcast episode not as rushed. But anyway, here we go. Part 1, my initial experience with it. Now, before I actually start with my initial experience watching the Super Mario Galaxy movie, I want to get one super, super important thing out of the way. A bit of a hot take, but this also, I'm going to let you know, this also sets the precedent for how I watch movies. Here's the flaming hot take. This is the hottest take I've ever dropped on this channel thus far. It might not stay that way for long. I don't know. I actually liked watching The Rise of Skywalker for the first time. Yeah, I said it. I actually liked it. If you're a Star Wars fan, you probably just looked at me like I committed heresy. Because if you actually look at it as a Star Wars fan and as an objective movie experience and also as just how it relates to the rest of the trilogy, you're wondering why the heck I have this opinion. I don't now. I understand that the movie is not great, but back when I first watched it, I watched it in a movie theater, which, again, is going to present a bunch of biases, but I wasn't paying attention to the story, more so the cinematic experience. And I think for that first time, watching it in theaters as a cinematic experience rather than a story, I liked it. I enjoyed it. And this is why I need you. And the reason why I brought this up is because the first time I watch any movie, I tend to view it less as, caring about the story or nitpicking all the little details, and more as a cinematic experience. And for me, for something to be a good cinematic experience does not necessarily mean it has to have a well fleshed out or established story. It could be a really crappy and terrible story with tons of plot holes and inconsistencies, like The Rise of Skywalker, and I can still enjoy watching it as a movie, at least for once. And kind of the same idea applies to my experience watching the Super Mario Galaxy movie for the first time. I did not watch this trying to nitpick the story or anything. I watched it as a cinematic experience, and as a cinematic experience, I absolutely loved it, especially since I was not expecting to ever have a cinematic experience. Because shout out to my parents, they are absolutely amazing, surprised our family with being able to watch it on release day. And I wasn't thinking I was going to be able to do that because I was in vacation and it was a very fun experience. Now, I'm going to talk about movie theaters for the next couple minutes here. Again, you might be wondering, when am I actually going to talk about the Mario Galaxy movie? We will get there when we get there. It's about the journey, not the destination. But trust me, I will eventually remember to get on topic and talk about it. Movie theaters have been such an interesting experience, especially for the last couple of years for me. And that's because they've changed a lot. I remember when I was younger, it would mostly be fold up chairs, those fold up chairs with the little cushions. They were okay, they were serviceable, but they weren't great chairs. That's what we usually got at movie theaters. And I'm sure better seating existed at the time, but we didn't really do that very often. If we went to the movie theaters that often at all, it's not something my family does very often. I'm not joking when I say this is a once, maybe twice a year experience for me. So when I go to the movie theater, it's a pretty big deal. But the last couple times, and I also talked about this in the Moana episode that I did, when I went to watch Moana and when I went to watch Super Mario Galaxy movie, they had really nice seats. I'm talking you could recline on them like they were a couch. They had actual heating. You could literally tap a button. I think it would tap a button and turn on heating, and it was really awesome. They were super comfortable. It makes the movie watching experience a lot better. If you can get those kind of seats in a movie theater, I would very highly recommend you do that because those seats are literally the best. And they also have cup holders, multiple cup holders, so you can put both your popcorn in one cup holder and the other in the other. And I remembered this really interesting movie trivia fact about movie popcorn specifically. There's a very specific ingredient that makes it taste different than regular popcorn. I can't remember the name, but you can actually buy it and if you use the proper ratio, you can actually literally just make movie popcorn at home. I can't remember the name of the ingredient. Editor me. I'm gonna ask you to do me a massive solid here. Can you research what the name of this ingredient is and put it here in the video, wherever my finger's pointing, just put it here below my face or something. Okay, thank you. I'm assuming you did that, or maybe you just trolled with me. I don't know what I'm planning on doing in the future. The future me doesn't exist yet. I can only exist in the present. I'm not a 5-dimensional being or whatever. Thank you. Getting back on topic to movie theaters, and then you just have this super wide screen that you get to watch the movie in, and it really immerses you in the experience. Why am I presenting all this? A, because I love gushing about movie theaters, because again, I only go to them once or twice a year. It's a really awesome experience. B, it's a really awesome experience, especially since the fact that, again, I was not expecting to be able to watch the Super Mario Galaxy movie on release day, much less in any timely manner after it released. And C, I really don't want to get into the movie part, get into actually reviewing the movie, because I'm gonna have to actually really think hard here and like pull from the depths of my memory the kind of stuff I brought up. I know I should talk about the Mario Galaxy movie, but I watched the movie. It was really fun watching the actual movie itself in the theater for the first time, especially because I am a massive Mario fan and I understood a lot of the references, and I do mean a lot of the references in the movie. I'm not sure how many my parents actually understood, because I knew there were references from Super Mario Odyssey, um, Mario 2, Super Mario World, Super Mario Galaxy, well, obviously Super Mario Galaxy, both 1 and 2, if I'm not mistaken. Heck, there's even a Super Mario Bros. Wonder reference in one of the power-ups that's used near the end of the movie. I was kind of shocked to see that. I'm like, wait a minute, they're using a reference from Wonder? Was what I thought when I saw it. And then there was obviously the most important reference and the most significant reference. I will talk about this specific thing a lot later, because this has massive, massive implications for something that Nintendo could do within the future. And that is that Star Fox from the Star Fox McCloud. Why did I say Star Fox? That's not his name. Fox McCloud from Star Fox appears in the movie, and it's not even like just a small cameo. He actually plays a pretty important role in the movie, which was the part that shocked me the most upon going into the movie, because I kind of had an idea that he was gonna be in the movie. Like, I had heard, like, oh, Fox is in the movie, and then I watched the movie. I'm like, wait a minute, he's not like some gag. He's a character that actually has plot relevance in the movie. What? And it was so funny to me. So this is the part of the video I'm kind of dreading to do, because I have to pull from the recesses of my mind what I've said during all those like random things. Again, it's one thing for me to just imagine and just to say it out loud. It's another thing for me to translate that into an actual recording entirely. So, but I will try my best here. This is like my pointers and like kind of my general opinion on the movie. Again, I am assuming that you have seen the movie, and I am assuming that you kind of understand the general plot as well. Here we go. Here's part 2. My opinion of the movie. And this is my present opinion. This is not my opinion when I watched the movie immediately after, because again, I was not focused on like nitpicking all the different story things. But afterwards, I did see that some people, weren't the biggest fan of it. I think one thing that really attracted to me was Moist Critical said he referred to the movie as Jingling Keys, the movie. And I will definitely agree on that point. Counterpoint, I am a massive sim for Jingling Keys, especially when that Jingling Keys is references to a video game series that has been one of the most foundational things growing up to me. So seeing all this stuff and seeing that Nintendo knows their fan base and knows like what they've made is nice. And I will say this, like the first movie, I came into this with the knowledge that even if it was, not a great movie, it could definitely be worse. It could be I think it's the 1992 or 93 adaptation of the movie, and that one is infamously bad. Screw the 10 likes thing, just know I will do a podcast episode on that movie in the future. There we go, okay? The next thing I want to bring up is that this was something I actually kind of addressed when I was trying to summarize the movie for the first time, but it's the fact that this movie kind of repeats the same thing the first one did, where it's like, oh no, this person is in distress. We need someone to save it. Except it's kind of rehashed. Instead of Mario going to take the lead to save it, it's Peach taking the lead to save the person who's trapped and in peril. And I get that there shouldn't be a super high standard for this, because pretty much the entirety of the Super Mario Brothers series is basically damsel in distress. This is how the Mario Brothers story works. It's not exactly a complicated thing or whatever. And I do think this is a bit of a bad thing in terms of the movie itself, because it kind of holds the movie back by conforming to this formula. Yes, it's definitely understandable given the series we're talking about and what it's based off of, but again, it still holds itself back. There's a lot of different deep and enriched stories, especially if you diverge off the main game series. And what I mean by that is if you go into the Mario RPG series like Paper Mario or Mario and Luigi, those have really amazing stories, and the fact that they stuck to the classic formula kind of holds them back a bit. But again, I don't think this is the biggest deal in the world, and I'm going to bounce off of that negative with a positive. And the positive here is Bowser in this movie is one of the best characters in the movie, hands down. I really did enjoy seeing Bowser's like growth from the first movie to the second movie, and how he was like trying to go through his problems, but obviously he's still flawed, and he also generally isn't the biggest fan of Mario, and Mario's not the biggest fan of him, even though Luigi's pretty chill. And I actually liked this because it develops all three characters. It establishes the fact that Mario reasonably holds a bit of a grudge against Bowser for all the things he did. It makes perfect sense. Sense for him to be adverse about, being forgiving towards him. Luigi is mostly chill with Bowser, and it's a massive personality difference between the two brothers that I wish was explored a bit more in the movie. But hopefully this gets a third movie, and this like difference between the brothers and the way they handle this kind of situation is expanded upon more, which is shocking, because if anyone could be mad at Bowser, it's Luigi. Because in the first movie, let's go through a reminder. He first off yanks a hair off his mustache really hard. I'm not sure if you know this, but if you yank a hair like just straight from the thing and just yank it really hard till it forcefully comes off, that can be a really painful experience. The second is that he was really aggressive towards him, which obviously scared Luigi. And finally, the dude literally tried to dunk him in lava. I think Luigi would have perfect justification to be like, I'm a bit adverse about forgiving you and being chill with you, but he's chill with Bowser nonetheless, and that's really interesting. Again, the movie doesn't expand too much on this, but I do find it a really interesting contrast to Mario, who is a bit more hesitant, and perhaps in this case a little bit more realistic, because he did all that stuff with his brother, and then also, tried to pummel. And I did actually want to talk about Bowser in the first movie really quickly, because I made a really good point here in a couple of discussions I had, mostly with myself, but I'm not sure if I ever brought this up in discussion. Bowser in the first movie is super insecure about his relationship with Peach, and whenever someone, ever brings up remotely the fact that, oh, Peach may not be interested in you, like, for example, when he's interrogating Luigi, and Luigi's kind of implies that Peach might be attracted to Mario, his first impulse is to lash out at the nearest male figure. This is a really interesting pattern throughout the movie. The first time this happens is when they're playing the piano and Magikarp is playing with him. He says something along the lines of that might threaten, the fact that Peach may not like him. He slams the piano down on his fingers, which I would imagine hurts like heck. That does not sound like that would be very nice. I also imagine that given Bowser's strength, your fingers would be broken. The second time this happens is obviously when he's interrogating Luigi and he pulls the hair out, which, as I previously mentioned, can be quite painful. The third time this happens is when Peach just straight up says, I'm not interested in marrying you, and his response is to have Kamek, try and, squeeze Toad? I don't know. It's a shocking pattern that I found in the movie, and I found it really interesting to find that pattern. I'm sorry, I went on a really stupid tangent that had nothing to do with it. Let's get back to the point of Bowser's character development. So Bowser in the second movie, he's more calm, but he's still working through it, and eventually there comes a point in the movie where he basically taunts Mario into hitting him and undoing the power of the blue mushroom. And he looks really ticked off, and then he's like really chill about it. Subversion of expectation, but Bowser is really chill in this movie until near the end. This leads me to what I will say right now is my biggest issue with this movie. And that is they took all of Bowser's like character development, like him becoming a better person, him, you know, actually wanting to improve his life, wanting to improve Bowser Jr.'s life, and that all gets thrown in the gutter near the climax of the movie. I really did not like this. Even when I was watching the movie for the first time, when, again, I don't really like to nitpick on story bits, I did not like this part. In watching, I thought, what was the point of all of that? All that character development just for him to throw it away and become the same old Bowser. Like, I get there's the justification that he's doing it anything he can to please his son and, you know, be a good father to his son, but still, I feel like he just kind of takes all that character development and tosses it in the trash. Obviously, he's a different character from the first movie, but again, I was not the biggest fan of the direction they took him right at the finale. And I hate saying that because I want to like this movie, but that is one thing I do not like about this movie. Genuinely do not like. And I hate having to go into this depth thing about Bowser's character being so, like, developed throughout the first parts of this second movie just for most of that to be thrown away right at the end. Again, I understand that there is precedent for Bowser doing what he's doing, and it's not like a total left field decision, but I didn't like it. I really feel bad saying that. So let's go back to a positive. And the positive part is that Peach is a badass in this movie, and I like it. I know there are some people who, you know, might have a problem with Peach being badass, and to that I say, read the Mario comics. She's been a badass since the 90s. Deal with it. And with any potential internet trolls who may happen to stumble upon this video out of the way, there's a lot of character development in this movie to the point where this movie is almost more about Peach than it is about Mario, and they kind of make that pretty clear from the get-go. You know, with the whole thing with Peach's birthday party, Peach musing about her origin story, Peach's and Rosalina's connection. Like, this was very much a movie that featured Peach quite a fair bit more than the first one. And that's not saying she didn't play an important role in the first movie. It's just more so a shift in direction, I'm noting. I'm not saying that it's a good thing or a bad thing, it's just merely an observation that I have. And the character development was very nice. Another thing I really liked, and I said this already, is the references. The references to this movie might be why some people call it Jingling Keys, but once again, I am a massive simp for Jingling Keys. You can crucify me about this in the comments if you really so feel inclined to. I loved watching the movie through the first time and be like, oh, I know that, and just seeing it there is neat. It didn't have to play an important part in the story. The fact that it was just there was fascinating, and some of the references did have reasons to be there aside from being references. Like, Wart was a minor antagonist in the movie. And if you don't know who Wart is, here's a really quick summary, little nerd gamer fact for you. He's the main antagonist in Super Mario Bros. 2, which is a really weird game because if I remember correctly, it's a rebranding of a Doki Doki game or something like that. I remember Super Mario Bros. 2 has some really twisted and dark lore. I'm pretty sure it's Doki Doki. I could be wrong, but it was a game of that nature, of this weird ass nature, and the game's story and stuff were just basically revamped and resprited, and that's how Super Mario Bros. 2 was made. It's so weird. Wart is the main villain in that game. There's the Ninjas, which, I'm gonna be honest, I'm a pretty big nerd on the lore of the Mario universe, but I have no idea what the heck the deals are with the Ninjas. I can't say I have any idea. In this movie, they were essentially Wart's minions. Birdo was in the movie as well. I forgot about that. And Birdo's also in Super Mario Bros. 2. I believe that's actually her first appearance. Rob from which you might know from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. He's the really slow robot that's in the Gateway Galaxy terminal, but there's actually it's actually a double-layered reference. The fact that Rob is slow is a reference to the real-life toy. So, I know I'm getting completely off topic here, and this kind of seems like just like Mario lore rather than just Super Mario Galaxy movie review, and I'm terribly sorry for that, but I want to gush about my knowledge about Rob. So, Rob was an accessory for the NES, and in real life, I believe this accessory had the bit of an issue of being horrendously slow. Like, the technology at the time wasn't super stellar, but still, it was horrendously slow. And the fact that Rob just like goes, "It's right there," and is like being really slow with his speech is actually a reference to the fact that the thing in real life is slow as heck. I learned this from a random YouTube comment. I am just like, oh, that's really cool information. So, yeah, it's very clear that that quite a few of the references were put in there with care, and especially Fox McCloud, and they actually give him a pretty big role in the movie. He's basically the one who takes them to Planet Bowser to help in the final fight that way. And Planet Bowser itself actually has quite a few references. Like one of those is to 3D World. I think another references New Super Mario Brothers, the roller coaster does. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, this seems really obscure. I might be grasping at straws here, but the roller coaster in that movie, it goes up and it dips in lava. And I think in either World 7 or World 8 in that game, in New Super Mario Brothers, there was a level where you had roller coasters that would like dip in, like little skeleton roller coasters that go up and then like dip into lava, and you'd have to jump to make sure that you don't get dunked in the lava, and because lava instantly kills you in the Mario series. Yeah, that's all I want to talk about in terms of like pointing out actual references. There's a lot more in the movie, but if I sat here talking about all the references I noticed, I'd be here just doing this for like another 40 minutes, and I don't want to do that. So let's get to perhaps the final and most important thing. And this is less a like positive or negative thing and more of what does this movie mean for the future of like Nintendo movies? Because there's one really significant thing here, and that is Fox McCloud. So Fox McCloud's whole reason for being in the movie is that obviously he has his same origin story that he does in the game, but his warp drive explodes, creating an explosion in space and time, which transports him to this universe. Now, that is a super, super important distinction that he said this universe, because that means that the multiverse exists, and I know that people are going to be groaning and gnashing their teeth. If you know something about multiverses in recent film history, it's that they haven't exactly been handled the best. I might make a video specifically on that and why perhaps that doesn't work the best. But again, disclaimer, it's not meant to be taken as fact and meant to be taken as my opinion, and obviously you're free to completely disagree with my opinion. But when I got out of the movie theater the first time, this was the main thing on my mind. And the main thing on it was, are they setting up for some kind of Super Smash Bros. Movie? And I was thinking about the different directions they could go, and ultimately I wanted to talk about that for a bit. So, Fox McCloud is confirmed to exist, and, like, yeah, he's in a different universe, but he's in, like, within proximity of it. Those two universes can somehow interact with each other. And if they can interact with each other, what's not to say they can't include other things like, Metroid, like the Metroid series, or Legend of Zelda, or stuff like that. I think Nintendo may be sending up some kind of, like, endgame Super Smash Brothers movie, but I would like to see this cook for, like, legitimately another decade, and see if they like want to release other movies based on their other IPs, because I think that would be super cool. I feel like some of them might have to not necessarily appeal to kids completely, hot take, because in order to properly portray some of the like stuff that happens in the other game series, you might need to diverge a little bit outside the PG rating. I don't know. All I'm saying here is Samus's backstory is pretty messed up. If you know, you know. But if that's what they're doing, one could also just theorize that this was just simply a marketing ploy for the new Star Fox game, and honestly, that's a perfectly valid thing. But I personally would like to be under the belief that Nintendo is cooking up something bigger. But only time will tell, because again, this if they really are planning a Smash Brothers movie, if they're smart about it, they're probably going to want to build up some other stuff first and then do it. But if they do that, the big question is, what's the story going to be for the Super Smash Brothers movie specifically? And in my mind, they have two ways they can do it. The first way, and I think this is the easier way, is to base it off of Subspace Emissary. For those of you who don't know, Super Smash Bros. Brawl had a story mode called Subspace Emissary. It was fully animated with like cutscenes and stuff. I'm not fully aware of the lore of that game, of that story mode, but basically, I think what it is that there's a being called Tabu who wants to like take over all the dimensions, and so he constructs an army to kind of try and do that. I don't know the deal with Tabu. I never really played the Subspace Emissary story mode, and I don't have a way to play it right now. The second way, and this could be equally as interesting, but it's also a little bit harder, is that you make it based off of World of Light from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The reason I say this is harder than Subspace Emissary is because Subspace Emissary already kind of has its whole story behind it. It has a whole, like, fairly fleshed out story, whereas the story for World of Light in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is a lot more vague. However, this vagueness and less like coherent part of the story does mean they can get a lot more creative freedom over the story, and they could make something really cool. Either way, I'd be interested in seeing either concept, but if I'm being honest, if they ever do make a Super Smash Brothers movie, basing it off of Subspace Emissary is probably the safest play there. Anyway, I know this podcast episode is not at all what most people expect when they see a review of a movie. I'm really sorry about that. Thank you for watching this far if you have. I'm surprised if you understand what the heck I'm talking about. I'm sorry I'm not very clear on this. I should have made like at least a Spark Notes so I could have something to do to ground myself. But if you did like this video, like, subscribe, all that stuff. I will see you all next time. Bye.